Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Abby.
And I'm Abby, and this is Between the Abbies, where we talk about the things that we don't talk about on our other pages.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week and for tuning in last week. If you're joining us from Spotify, welcome. Apple Podcasts, welcome. And we will have this up on YouTube with a video of Abby and I. So if you're joining us from YouTube, also welcome and hello.
We are both in very different places right now, so I think that we should kind of start by diving into that. Abby, do you want to talk about where you are a little bit?
Yeah, so last time we caught up with you guys, I was up in Washington State visiting my family, and I am now down in Southern California. I drove down here in about 3 days. It was a very quick road trip and very mentally taxing because driving that far, I'm sure, Abby, you can relate, is just draining. But I'm really happy to be down here because it's so nice and warm, and I've been doing a lot of surfing recently, which has been really fun. I've surfed for the last few years, just with friends kind of messing around, but never really got any lessons and never really tried to progress. And so recently I bought my own board. I got a longboard and I took a lesson yesterday, which went really well. And I'm just really excited on it right now, but it's gonna be raining for the next few days. And I know you can surf in the rain if you want to, if it's light rain, but I don't know if I will. But anyway, down in Southern California, enjoying all the really good Mexican food and the surfing and the people, and it's just a really good time. And Abby is somewhere very different. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
I am in Costa Rica. I'm actually in a little pod hostel right now. I'll try to include a video of it in this so that you guys can see kind of where it is. But it's really crazy. If you guys hear any background noise, I literally have no control over anything that's happening here. But it has been so cool. So my van, basically I found out that it wasn't going to be ready for another 4 to 6 weeks. And that's putting it at almost 6 months of getting fixed, which is absolutely wild because at first they quoted me 2 months, which when they told me 2 months, my heart sank. That felt so long to not have my home. So to have it end up being 6 months is just crazy, but we're powering through. And honestly, silver lining is I am in Costa Rica right now. We spent last week in Puerto Viejo, which was absolutely phenomenal. We had a little Airbnb there. I actually took a surf lesson too, and it rained, so we did go surfing in the rain. It was amazing. It was only the second time I've ever tried to go surfing, but it was phenomenal. We were kind of just in the whitewash doing baby waves, but I was able to stand up quite a few times. The guys were awesome. They own this little hole in the wall surf school. If you are in Puerto Viejo, check out the surf school there. It's a little hut on the side of the road, and they have all their boards, and they're just super cool guys. And then awesome. Now we drove about 5 hours. I'm by Arnal Volcano, the national park here, and I'm staying in this really cool hostel. It's called Arnal Backpackers Resort, and we're here we are here for the next week. And so yesterday we went on a hike, and then today, I think after we film this, we're going to go to some hot springs, and then we're also going to do zip lining here and whitewater rafting and just some really cool things. So I feel that's the silver lining that's come out of me not having my van back, is just that I'm getting to experience this, and I don't think that I would have taken the leap to come spend a month here if I had my home. So
100%. I mean, good for you for making the most out of the situation, because I feel a lot of people would have just been well, this sucks and my life is, not going great right now, and I'm just gonna sit and be sad about it. But it is really cool that you were able to take that opportunity and make it into something that was a positive experience,
Yeah, no, I feel really just happy and grateful to be here. I actually got a lot of hate about coming here because I had openly been pretty upset about my van not being ready on the internet, which I was very upset. And then when I decided to come here and take this trip, people were just yeah, that's such worst case scenario. That's first world problems, which it is first world problems, but I don't think that people see a van as a home. And so it's they're oh, poor you, your van's not there. But if someone's house got destroyed, they would have that sympathy for them. I don't know. It was
No,
whatever.
for sure. And like you see that in like my friends right now, they live in Florida, and their house got, flooded in the recent hurricane, and they haven't been able to live in it for like 6 months. They have a newborn baby. They have had to stay with her parents, and she's been very openly upset about it online, understandably. Like, that's an awful situation. And people have been very sympathetic and like really, really nice to her. And so to see like the difference is kind of interesting. Where, like, you were also displaced from your home, but obviously very different scenarios, but
I mean, I don't have like a child or anything. I really only have to worry about myself. But I think that they just see our lives as like permanent vacation, and they're like, oh, well, worst case, you just get to go on vacation to Costa Rica for a month or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. I just don't think that
which
they
is
understand.
Which is pretty good.
Which is pretty good, and I get it. But like when that first happens, like, one, this is costing me a decent amount of money that I wasn't planning on spending. Worth it. Yeah. Like, I'm very happy to spend it. But it's just, I don't know. Yeah. But it's been cool. The majority of people are very, very nice online. I actually, crazy randomly, I was at a restaurant bar last night. We were watching Marty's friend from Guatemala that she met there. She randomly ran into him in Costa Rica, and he was performing a show.
That's crazy.
So we went to go watch him perform, and then our friend Marty actually got up and performed too. So that was really fun. We got to watch her, but we were checking out. It was so fun. We were checking out, and this guy came up, and he was like, hey, like, I follow you on Instagram, like, blah, 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 which is crazy because we're in Costa Rica, and he's from Minnesota. He built out a van. He's like a dad. Like, him and his daughter have taken trips in the van together. It was really cool. And then he was like, I love your new podcast too. And it was crazy because he's the first person that I've met in person that like listens to the podcast. And like, sometimes I feel like we're just putting this out into the abyss. And it's like this random dad that lives in Minnesota and travels in his van sometimes that was randomly at the same restaurant as me in Costa Rica. Listens to our podcast.
That's so sweet. It's so fun making those connections of like, because it is like, you feel like when you put out content like this, or kind of just any content, that you're kind of just throwing it out there and seeing what catches, and it is really easy to feel like disconnected from your audience. Like, I try to go through my comment sections and reply to people, but it's still, you're just messaging someone without a face on the internet usually. And it doesn't really feel connected. But so when you meet those people in person, like, that's why I always say, if you see me in person, like, come up and say hi, because some of my best friends I've met from them having followed me on social media. Like, my friend Kat, she followed me since I just started TikTok, and now she's like, I would consider her one of my best friends. And so making those connections and putting faces to the names, and just like actually having like a tangible person that has watched your stuff and can talk about it with you is really cool. I'm actually parked in front of my friend's house right now in Malibu, and we met before I moved into my van, but his roommate has followed me since, I don't know, probably back when I was like 18 or 19, and had just started TikTok. And so it was really fun to like discuss with him, how different it is meeting me in person versus watching me online. And to me, that's really interesting too, because I have no idea how I come off online versus how I am in person. So I don't know. That's such a cool thing, and that's really cool that it happened in freaking Costa Rica. I had that happen in Switzerland once, which was so strange.
Yeah, it's like, I think
you're so far away from home.
Usually, when you're in places that you expect people to be, right? Like, if I'm out hiking and someone comes up, and usually it's people also, my following's mostly women, so usually it's women like around my age, like between 20 and 30, that'll kind of like come up, and it's usually in places that you expect them to be, like in national parks, in like, I don't know, Planet Fitness, or like in cities, but just like where your demographic would be, just like having him come up, like this dad in Costa Rica. And it's like, what are the odds that this guy that watches my videos in Minnesota and has built out a van is not only in Costa Rica at the same time, not only in the same little town, but happens to be at, like, it just felt really crazy. And his name's Tony. Tony, if you're listening, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you for saying hi.
Hi, Tony.
And thank you for listening to the podcast. But yeah, just cool. It felt cool. Usually it was the most shocked I've ever been by like someone coming up and saying hi. So it was cool.
Well, how long are you in Costa Rica for then?
So I'm here until, when do I fly back? I fly back January 10th. And so I'm here for another like 3 weeks. I have another week here, or a week here at this place that I'm at now. And then we're going to be on the Pacific coast for the next 2 weeks, which will be pretty cool. We have like a really cute Airbnb booked for Christmas, which will be fun because I feel like last year I wasn't home for Christmas, but like I think this year being in like such a cool place and also having one of my friends with me will just be like really awesome, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, like you were alone last year for Christmas. I don't know how you did that.
I was in White Sands National Park. I think I've talked about this a little bit, but yeah, I was sledding, and it was a bunch of families with their kids like on their Christmas trip, and I literally started sobbing in the middle of sledding because I was just like, I'm so alone right now. But yeah, I think I also learned my lesson. I also think that if I was totally alone on Christmas this year, it would be different than last year. I had just gotten on the road last year. I feel like it was really my first time doing anything like that alone. And so to have that happen like during a holiday that you're usually around all of your family, I think was just like a lot emotionally for me. But now that I've done so much alone, like I don't think I would have that same reaction.
Oh, for sure. I feel the same way. Like last year I was in France for Christmas, I want to say, and Christmas wasn't too rough, but Thanksgiving was kind of hard, which is interesting because Thanksgiving, like, you know, it's not, I feel like, as big as Christmas, but I had just moved over to Europe, and so I was already feeling really homesick and just unsettled and uprooted. And having a family holiday going on at the same time as that, where I had never missed a Thanksgiving and never missed a Christmas with my family, was so weird. But this year, like, I am going to be driving up to Utah in about 4 or 5 days. I'm just going to do the drive in one day. It's like 11 hours.
Dang.
It's going to suck, but it's going to be fine.
I'm going to drive up to Utah. You keep giving yourself crazy long drives. Why do you do that?
I just really wanted to come to California to come surf. I was like, it was like kind of an impulsive thought, and then I was like, I'm going.
I feel like
I'm just gonna go.
I drive like max 6 hours in a day. Like I have a van so that I don't have to drive those long distances in one shot.
That was my plan originally. Like 6 hours is usually my max that I'll do. But when I was on the road coming down to California, it was my last drive day. Or my second to last day, because I was planning on doing 6 hours and then doing 4 hours the next day. And my friend Ben was driving on the I-5, like literally half a mile away from me. And he was driving all the way down to Malibu. And that's literally where I'm parked. I'm parked in front of his house right now. We were planning to meet up. So it was just a crazy coincidence that he was like half a mile away from me on the I-5, like heading down to Malibu. And so,
does he live in a house? Was he just like in his car driving down there?
Yeah, he was just in his car. Like we just happened to be on the same stretch, like at the same exact time. And so we ended up just meeting up and carpooling, and I was like, fuck it, I'll just do the rest of the drive right now. And so I just ended up doing 10 hours that day. So it was kind of an accident, but anyway, I'm happy to be down here, and I'm excited to see my family this year for Christmas. So I'll go up to Salt Lake this week, hang out there for a few days, and I'm probably going to come back down to California to surf for the rest of the month.
Nice.
And then it'll be a good time.
That's awesome. You just bought a surfboard too.
I did, yeah. It's strapped to my roof right now. It's so nice. Like for the last couple years, had just been on like foamies and then had borrowed boards from my friends. So I never really had a consistent board to learn on, something that was like going to stay the same. And it was really hard to learn like that because the board, I mean, if you surf, you know, like the board is, having inconsistent boards is really unsettling, especially for a beginner. And so someone just walked by my van. And so anyway, having a consistent board is really nice to just learn on, and I'm really excited about it. And now when friends want to go surf, I don't have to like go borrow a board from someone. I just have my own. So
that's awesome. What kind of board did you get? Stoked. Is it?
It's an 8'6". It's called a modern longboard, and the model is called the Boss. And basically it's just like an 8'6", very like standard longboard. It's smaller than like usually longboards are like 9 to 10 feet, but I got a smaller one because it's like a little bit safer for a beginner. So
okay,
yeah,
That's so cool, though. Oh my God, I'm jealous. I feel like surfing is the one activity that I've taken a couple lessons. And I feel like if I borrowed a board from someone, like I could kind of hang out in the whitewash and just like have fun. Yeah. But I just haven't really dove into it yet. Like I ski and snowboard and somewhat climb-ish, like mostly just at gyms, and like hike and backpack. But I would love to learn how to surf, like for real.
I mean, you're coming down to, you're coming down to Southern California, right? After you get your van back?
Yes, that's the plan right now. I was trying to, there's a van festival in Arizona, and I was trying to decide if I am going to go to that or not, because I'm probably going to get back into my van mid to end of January. Yeah. And so I would be driving down, and that festival is the end of January. So if I go to that, I would just go to Arizona and then probably come back to Southern California. But I'm also debating just skipping it. Since I haven't been in my van for so long, I kind of just need like that like solo. Like I feel like I'm just like craving just like being in it. You know what I mean? And not necessarily like parking it at a festival. But I want to get my skydiving license in San Diego. So maybe I could just kind of like do both at the same time and like get my skydiving license and also like book some surf lessons and just try to get like 2 new skills. Be pretty fun.
It's fun. It's like, it's so nice to just adopt every hobby, because then like I just love being able to, like if my friends are going out and doing something, I can always say yes, you know, like if they're going surfing, I feel competent to do that by myself. If they're going skydiving, I can also do that by myself. Like I can kind of do whatever, and I'm not like super good at any of them. Like I don't think I'm an expert at by any means at any of them, but I'm like competent enough to be decent at them, which is fun, you know. And like that was do my goal safely. Yesterday with a surf lesson. To do it safely, and to like with surfing, I had always been able to like catch waves and kind of just go straight. And so yesterday in the lesson, I was like, I want to learn how to turn. I want to learn how to catch more waves. I want to learn how to catch bigger waves. And the guy was so helpful, and it was so fun. So anyway, you should definitely do that. Yeah. If anyone is in Southern California, especially in Malibu Surf School, hit up Dimitri. Dimitri is freaking amazing. Like I had so much fun. Such a rad guy. Just like a little plug right there, but he was great, and I highly recommend.
Oh my God, yes. Anyway. Well, I will probably hit up Dimitri when I'm in Southern California.
Shout out Dimitri.
I just think that it would be really fun, and I agree. I like just being able to do things. Like even, I skied my whole life, but then starting in high school, I just started snowboarding a little bit because I wanted like a new challenge. And this year, like, I don't know, it feels so different. And so like I was originally just bought a snowboard because I was like, I really just want to get really good, and if I force myself to only snowboard and like not have skis as a backup, I'll get really good at boarding. But then I had so many friends that are like really good skiers and snowboarders that wanted to go do like backcountry stuff, and so I ended up getting skis too, because I was like, I don't want to not be able to go. Because I do like to say yes. So it's fun, but I'm excited. I think that that'll be my next hobby. And then also skydiving. I've been wanting to learn how to skydive. Before I moved into my van ended up being my adventure, but my adventure was going to be getting skydive certified. And then I realized that I needed to get out. So. Yeah, no, skydiving's a good time. I haven't jumped in a while, so I gotta actually... Today, I think I'm dropping off my rig to go get repacked. My reserve is uncurrent, so I'm going to go drop it off to get repacked. And then, unfortunately, the weather sucks the next few days, so I don't know if I'll be able to jump. But that's awesome.
I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah. No, it's been cool. It's also... I feel so grateful because I was booking this trip by myself, and then randomly just 2 of my friends, and that's like the beautiful thing about the nomad community is people are just so like yes men and like willing to do anything all the time. And I was like, I think I'm gonna go to Costa Rica for a month, and my one friend was like, oh, I want to go, so we booked the whole trip together. And then our other friend was just like, wait, I want to go, and so she's coming for like the first couple weeks of the trip. But it's really cool. It's just really like-minded people, and everyone's kind of like together. Like all 3 of us are like queer women that solo travel, and we just have like this whole little community, and it's just the type of people that I never really ran into or got to interact with when I was kind of stuck in that like normal 9-to-5 city society. No,
I feel the same way. Like, the community on the road is so different than anybody that you encounter, or like, I guess the community that you encounter while living in a city or living just in a stationary place, because it's so many like-minded people in just such a small community. And yeah, I feel like most, I guess not most people, but a lot of women, especially in the van life community, are queer, which is really interesting. You want to talk about that for a second? Because I feel like that's a really something like people really never talk about, is just how big the queer community is on the road.
It's like, it's the majority of women. Like, I think that I was talking to my friend V about this, who I'm traveling with right now, and I think that I've met one straight girl on the road, like one singular, and like I know like hundreds of people on the road, but everyone is like, everyone, like, not everyone, a lot of the men are straight. There are some queer men though too, that I've met, but it this is like a funny dichotomy, but I think about it all the time in terms of like dating on the road. Like, you have a lot of queer women and then a lot of straight men.
So bi girls are just like
bi girls just have, but almost every girl that I've met,
options.
Almost every girl that I've met on the road is bisexual. I only know, like, I'm a lesbian. I know one other girl, I think, that's a lesbian, and then everyone else is bisexual. They're just like,
isn't that so funny? Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because the lifestyle attracts people that are just very open-minded, I think? And maybe that they find community in, you know, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people that are queer have a hard time finding their community in that. And so a lot of people who are queer become like very hyper independent. And then that can lead them into van life and that kind of stuff.
That's so interesting.
How I kind of found it.
I hadn't really thought about it like that, like in terms of being hyper independent. I know, like, it's definitely a common theme that like van life just like attracts hyper independent people. I do think that is a really interesting point, though, that like queer people are usually pretty hyper independent and also pretty open to like going to the beat of their own drum. Like, we're already, and I think that this is how I always talk about how if I wasn't gay, I wouldn't be living in a van, and people are like, what are you talking about? And it's because I had this like perfect in quotes idea of how I thought that my life was going to go. I was going to graduate college, get my CPA, get a really good job, meet a nice man, settle down, have kids, except for I never pictured the actual man in that, you know what I mean? It was just like, I wanted a house with a white picket fence and a dog and 2 kids, whatever. And so that's how I always pictured my life. And then when I realized that I was gay, I almost was like mourning the loss of that for a little bit, of like, okay, like, this isn't going to happen for me. I'm not going to have this kind of life, right? And then I kind of started to not only accept that, but love that. Like, I had like kind of like broken out of this mold, and I was so like truly happy for the first time not the first time, I had been happy, but like it was a different kind of happiness that I hadn't experienced yet. And well,
it's one that's based on something that you solely did yourself. You know, like, you created this life for yourself, and you feel like fulfillment from it. And I think fulfillment is a very different feeling than just like standard happiness.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, you're happy for yourself. You're not happy because other people are looking at you and like approving of what you're doing. And I think that I had always based my happiness before on other people's approval. And so then I started to kind of like break down my walls of like, okay, well, if I'm not going to have this cookie cutter life, and if I'm not going to go out there and chase society's approval, what do I actually want? And I don't think I would have ever really asked myself that if I hadn't already had like an internal conflict. And I don't know that for sure. I totally could still be here, but I'm not sure if I would.
I think that's very accurate. And I also think that, I don't know, living on the road, you spend a lot of time in like self-discovery mode, right?
Yeah.
You are constantly either alone or meeting new people, and that promotes a lot of growth really at like a high speed, right? And so my first year on the road was transformative. Like, I was a completely different person before I hit the road versus a year in. And that growth happened so quickly because it's just expedited with, how many experiences, how many new experiences you're having while living nomadically. And I think that can really force people to, I guess, think about their sexuality. Like, I knew I was bisexual before I hit the road, but living in a van and like meeting new people and really looking inwards, and I don't know, it just really helped me own my sexuality. And it helped me like become very comfortable with it and confident with it. And especially meeting a lot of other queer people on the road, I just completely felt at home, and I think that that's a lot of the things that happens when people who maybe have never left their hometown like I had, I want to say hit the road again, but I shouldn't, because I just said it like 5 times. When they move into a van or move into a rig and start living nomadically, they find out a lot about themselves. And I think that can growth and enable them to feel comfortable enough to own their sexuality. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it is such an accepting community. And I think that that's part of it. Is I think about like my high school, there was not a single out gay person at my high school. And now there's like so many of us that have come out, like either in college or after college. And I've actually gotten a lot of DMs since like I am pretty open online about my sexuality from people at my high school that are just, because I was a pretty like cookie cutter, like I was a cheerleader for a couple of years. I played lacrosse. I was like a partier. I dressed very like straight white girl. And so like people were pretty shocked. And I've gotten so many DMs from people that are just like, I'm so happy for you. And like, it was so crazy, like growing up in Marvin Ridge. I didn't know that I was queer in high school, but a lot of them did. And so they were like, it honestly, like seeing people from high school now kind of like living out that life kind of like makes you go think back to that situation and like feel like, wow, I wasn't like as alone as I thought I was.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I see people from my high school that have come out and are dating, like women who are dating other women now, that I had no idea were queer at all, because nobody talked about it. It wasn't intentionally like hush hush, but you just knew that if you came out in a small town, then it was just going to be a big deal. Yeah. Like, and a lot of people, especially me, like I didn't want that attention. I didn't want to be like a standout from everyone else in that way. And also, I found it hard because I didn't know any like bisexual people. I don't know if I've talked about this on here before. I think I have, but I didn't know any bisexual people in high school. It was just people that were like more openly just gay. Yeah. And I didn't feel the same way as them. So I just thought that I didn't need to, that I didn't even think that I was bisexual at first, because I was like, well, I'm not like gay, so then that means I'm straight, kind of thing.
And I think that's a common, I think that a lot of people go through that.
Yeah. And I think that just in general in society, like there isn't a ton of representation. There is, and there isn't at the same time, but the representation usually comes in like, I don't know, I feel like more like gay and lesbian kind of ways. And there's not a lot of like bisexual representation. But just queer representation in general, I feel like kind of lacks in regular society. But in van life, it's just very, very prevalent.
It has come a long way in terms of, media. And van life, though, the one thing that I think about is when I meet someone, I pretty much assume, I don't assume, I pretty much like kind of like am very open about the fact where it's like, you don't assume someone's sexuality. And I feel like everyone kind of walks in with that. It's like people just kind of either assume that everyone's bisexual or like just like are like very open. Like there isn't, in normal society, if someone meets me, they'll be like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Are you...
They just assume you're straight,
They just assume that you're straight, and that does not... Or at least that hasn't really happened to me in van life. Like, I feel like everyone just kind of assumes that everyone's a little fruity.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because everyone is.
Yeah, and No, that makes it, honestly, that makes it so hard to read people too when you're not in like the community, when you're not interacting with people who live in vans, because I'll go into like a coffee shop and I'll see a really cute girl and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know how to read the situation because I don't know. Is the backwards hat just her being trendy, or is it, you know?
No, I feel that. I feel like I will definitely approach people, but only if I know that they are also queer. Like,
yeah.
If I know for a fact that they're queer, then, like, I would approach them. But if I don't know, I really will not make a move because I feel like just, like, this horrible anxiety about it.
Yeah.
And I think it also comes from, like, just the fact that the way that women have been treated by men and like the way that we've been approached by men and like not wanting to do that to someone else, or like go up to someone and then have them think that you're like looking at them the way that a straight man would, even though you're not.
Yeah.
Because the way that queer women are attracted to women is so different than the way that straight men are attracted to women.
Oh my God. No, I completely, that's the biggest roadblock, I feel like, when you're trying to talk to a woman but you don't quite know and you don't want to come off as creepy or like weird, but yeah, that's tough.
No, I do think that media though has come a long way in terms of like, I grew up in North Carolina in high school. I remember my favorite show was The Fosters, and it's funny because V and I are rewatching it right now, and I was obsessed with it, and I couldn't put my finger on it why, but if you haven't watched the show, it has like basically two moms, and they have a lot of adopted kids, and I remember like telling my aunt about it, like, because my sister and I were obsessed with it, and she was like, oh, what's the show about? And I was like, oh, it's just about this family, and it's kind of like showing what like a different type of family could look like, and they're like going through their own issues. And I was like, and they have two moms, and I was like, but it's like not really about that, like they're just like this normal couple that's like living their lives, and like you don't even notice that it's two women. Like I remember saying it like that, like it was just like so, and I didn't even know that. I mean, saying that, I'm like, I should have known that I was gay at the time, because it's like it like meant so much to me to see something like that, because I had never seen it shown in like such a normal, loving way before, because I feel like all of the representation is often like over-sexualized or just like really masculine presenting women, which, not that like obviously really masculine presenting women like exist in the space, but there weren't really any women that looked like me or that like I felt like I could resonate with. So I remember that. But, and I think that that's why you have in our society, like, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, and you have like this whole demographic of people that really want to find representation or find ways to relate like mainstream art to themselves. And Taylor Swift also like writes a lot about like unrequited love and things that hit home to a lot of queer people, and she's also been very ambiguous with her sexuality, but like the hate that queer people get online for even suggesting that any of Taylor Swift's songs might be gay is insane.
But a lot of them, I'm gonna get hate for this, but a lot of them are very gay.
Yes, they are
in the best way, in the most amazing way. But she, like, that's the thing about Taylor Swift, is that she doesn't openly talk about any of her relationships. None. Like, she has never been one to discuss, like, any of her exes or past relationships openly. She does write about them in her song lyrics, you know? So, obviously, she's not going to talk openly about her sexuality or any, like, women that she's dated. But will she write about them, and has she written about them? Most likely, you know? I think
that also a lot of it is she uses a lot of like queer flagging, which is kind of like straight people wouldn't pick up on it, but if you're queer, like, you know, and you're like, oh, that is a queer experience, or that's like and so I think a lot of straight people get offended because, well, they're like, stop assuming her sexuality, and I'm like, you're assuming her sexuality too. Like, if you're saying to, like, not talk about her sexuality, but then you're saying that she's straight, you're also assuming her sexuality. Like,
no, exactly. Like, what are some of your favorites, like, what are some of your favorite lyrics that she said? I can think of a few that are very, like, if you know kind of thing.
Okay, go for it. What are yours?
I love this. So in my Spotify Wrapped, Right Where You Left Me was my top song.
That was going to be mine. That song is the gayest song I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's my Spotify Wrapped was Taylor Swift was my top artist, and Right Where You Left Me was my top song.
That's iconic.
And in that song, such a gay song, but there's a term called a hairpin drop.
Yeah.
Where in the past, where, like, if this is not like a very talked about or I guess like open thing, but it's kind of like if you know kind of thing. But in the past, you know, queer artists will either, like, there's been times where they'll paint a little hairpin into their art, or they'll say the word hairpin in music, and that's kind of them just like hinting that they're queer.
Yeah.
And so in this song, Right Where You Left Me, the lyric is, I swear you could hear a hairpin drop right when I felt the moment stop. Glass shattered on the white cloth, everybody moved on. And so the hairpin drop, I feel like, was a very obvious, this is about a woman kind of song.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it also, like, I feel like since the rest of the song, like, she's still 23 inside her fantasy, is like, she met Karlie Kloss when she was 23 at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and she said, and they're all wearing pink robes, it's like an actual fantasy.
Yeah.
And then she says hairpin drop, and I think what Taylor Swift says to, like, everyone is that she doesn't do anything by accident. Everything is so thought out. It's and there's no way that Taylor Swift, who has at the very least been a pretty strong ally towards the queer community, did not know what the term hairpin drop meant. And if she was just trying to say that it was quiet, she would have just said you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hairpin is such a specific term.
Well, and then also, so Karlie Kloss and her, right, they had this alleged relationship for a while. They were living together, like, it was this whole thing, and then it just suddenly ended. They stopped, I don't know if they unfollowed each other, but they stopped, you know, posting about each other. They stopped hanging out. It was just completely over. And in the song, and after they stopped being friends, quote unquote friends, Karlie, you know, married a man that is Jewish. And if you don't know, in a Jewish wedding tradition, like, as soon as they're married, they wrap glass in a white cloth and they smash the glass in the white cloth. And in this song, when you hear the lyric, glass shattered on the white cloth, you imagine it as they're sitting at a restaurant, maybe a wine glass fell and it shattered on the white cloth. No.
Mm-mm.
I firmly believe that this is talking about Karlie's wedding.
Oh,
because glass shattered on the white cloth, everybody moved on. I stayed right where you left me. And then also, she says at the end of the song, if our love died young, I can't bear witness, because she didn't go to the wedding.
Yes.
Crazy! Are you kidding?
Crazy.
I dived down this rabbit hole so many times. The amount of times I've explained this song to people.
No, I was explaining this song when we were on our way back from the airport at ACL. Yeah. Me, Abby, and then our other friend Alex. Abby was, like, taking a nap in the back seat, and Alex is not a very big Taylor Swift fan, and she's gay too, so I was like, I feel like you're gonna appreciate this. And so I was playing every gay Taylor Swift song, pausing each one like 3 times and, like, explaining the meaning behind all of it. And I don't know if she told me that she enjoyed it, because I kept being like, we can listen to something else, and she was like, no, I'm enjoying it. And I was like, are you really? I just, like, couldn't tell, but I get so passionate.
No, me too.
About
like
it.
Literally, I feel the same way about Ethel Cain. I don't think you really have listened to Ethel Cain. But if you don't listen to Ethel Cain, her stuff is amazing. Which Ethel Cain is also trans. I don't think a lot of people know that. But she's a trans woman, and she's just an amazing artist in general. I won't go too much into it, but yeah, I'll like sit in the car on the way home with my mom or something and just like completely deep dive the whole album, and it's just insane. And like her lyrics are also very similar to Taylor's. They're very, very well thought out, very methodical, very intentional. Like, there's none of the lyrics happen by accident, you know? It's like she plans that so hard.
Oh, for sure.
Which is something I really respect about Taylor.
Yeah. Well, do you know what one of my favorite Taylor Swift things is? Is that So Evermore is basically dedicated to
Yeah.
Emily Dickinson, who's a gay poet. And if you guys haven't seen the show Dickinson, I think it's on
I actually haven't seen
Apple
it. I need to
TV,
watch that.
but it's really
Yeah.
good, and you should watch it. Oh, you should definitely watch it. You would love it. And Haley Steinfeld is like the main character, and she's just really hot too. So anyway,
Sick.
it's really good. You should watch it. But basically, she released that album on Emily Dickinson's birthday, and the last line of Emily Dickinson's most famous poem is Forevermore, and like obviously the album is called Evermore, and then the song Ivy is basically about her and Sue and
Yeah.
Emily's relationship, and it's from Sue's perspective because basically Sue ended up marrying Emily's brother. Like, they were in a relationship together. Emily came from a very wealthy family and she never married, and Sue had to marry, and so she ended up marrying Emily's brother. But like the lines in the song are like, he wants what's only yours, like my palm fits perfectly into your hand, but like it's been promised to another, like all of these types of things. And anyway, they ended up, after Emily Dickinson died, they found all of her poems to Sue, and that's how she became famous. Like, she didn't become famous until after she died, but
Yeah.
basically, so many of the songs on Evermore are so gay because they're all like dedicated and written about that. And I just think that it's one of those things where it's like a straight person wouldn't do that.
No.
Like, I don't mean to be crazy, but like I would not, as a queer person, I wouldn't, or like as a lesbian, I personally would not sit down and write a bunch of art about heterosexual people, because that's not something that like relates to me or that I feel like super connected to in an artistic sort of way.
No, for sure. And, you know, she's openly been a very amazing representation for the community. But I think that there is like a much deeper connection with her to the community, you know?
Gay pride makes me me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and also how, like,
in the words of Taylor
God,
Swift.
there's so many lyrics that you could, like, that are just very obvious. But because she never openly talks about her relationships, they're not completely obvious, because people, you know, like in the song Delicate, where she says, I once was poison ivy, but now I'm your daisy.
Oh, yeah.
And
that
if you
whole
don't know,
song,
Carly
though,
Kloss,
No, finish telling the story.
But if you don't know, Carly Kloss used to call Taylor like her daisy, and tagged her in an Instagram photo of a daisy, like tagged Taylor Swift as the daisy. And so that lyric was just like, are you kidding?
Are you kidding me? Well, and she drew
it's right there.
The picture of Taylor Swift's journal when she was writing the song, above the word daisy, she drew a daisy, and it's laying in the exact same shape as the one that was laying on the dashboard. And in that song also, she says, my name is whatever you decide. And they were on a trip to Big Sur during the time, her and Carly Kloss. And Carly Kloss wrote out Carly plus Taylor and put it in a heart in the sand, and she forgot the O in Taylor's name, and so she like spelled it wrong, and so it's like, my name is whatever you decide. And Taylor Swift was asked by a couple where they should go for their anniversary for a romantic honeymoon, something like that. And she said Big Sur after she went there with Carly Kloss.
So it's very obvious. So if you haven't looked this up, you should definitely deep dive more into Taylor's lyrics, because
for sure,
it's so fun. Like, it's my favorite thing to do, to just go through her albums and be like, whoa, I never even thought about this before, but it's so good.
I feel like I always pick up on new things. Like, I've been a Taylor Swift fan forever. I listen to like probably 60% of what I listen to is like Taylor Swift. That's like an embarrassing statistic, but it's true, because she has music in every genre for every mood. But like, I feel like I still pick up on new things all the time when I'm listening to it, and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't hear that before.
I just have such a high respect for artists who are, one, very intentional with their lyrics, and two, they have such a deeper meaning behind them, and none of the lyrics are just like surface level. Like, all of them are very methodical and planned out. And I'm gonna bring up Matty Healy. I know we don't like Matty Healy, especially because Taylor Swift and just everything he's done, don't love him. However, Maddie Healy, I feel like, is one of the best songwriting artists that we have in our time right now. Like, his lyrics are, because he's so, like, quote unquote liberal woke kind of person, like, he really plays into that. His lyrics are very, very harsh in that sense, but so methodical, so planned out, very well orchestrated. And, you know, actually, Brittany Broski talked about this in her last episode. She deep dived into more of his lyrics, and there is just an insane amount of hidden meanings behind them. So good. And I feel the same way about, you know, Ethel Cain. Like, she writes in a different persona. Her name is not actually Ethel Cain, but she writes in the persona of Ethel Cain, and it's a made up persona, and she's telling the story of this made up person, and it's just very, very good. Yeah, her real name is Hayden.
Cool.
And it's just so cool. There's so many cool stories behind that. And so the same thing with Taylor Swift. Like, it's like these artists, they already know the art is already there in their minds. They just have to, like, reveal it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's
no,
so
for
cool.
Sure. I think that it also, a lot of it comes down to being super raw and vulnerable too. I think about it. Yeah. I was talking about this with my friend the other day with Taylor Swift, but just the fact that I respect her so much for how open she is about her life, because there's so many things where it's like, for me, like, I feel like people let pride or ego get in the way, and they have a hard time saying how they actually feel, let alone writing that into a song and being so vulnerable and open about the fact that, like, someone hurt you so badly, instead of just kind of like, I feel like a lot of other pop artists will kind of, like, write songs in terms of, like kind of like, fuck them, like, yeah, like, I'm good, I'm doing great, whatever. Like, she, like, really allows herself to, like, sit in the hurt and write about it. And I think that that's why she's so relatable, because people are like, damn, like, I feel like that. And, like, not that many people are brave enough to admit it, I guess. And so I have a lot of respect for her.
And she talks so much about so many things that are so personal to her in her songs, but she leaves them all up for speculation, which I think is even braver, because a lot of artists, you know, they'll talk about their songs and they will be very open about who they're written about and what they're written about. And I think it's almost more kind of crazy to just not talk about it at all and have all these people just speculate on what it could be about, because then there's just a bunch of misinformation and falsities going around about what this is about when you know your own truth. But I think Taylor's so comfortable and confident in herself and how she knows her truth that she doesn't need anybody else to validate that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's so true. She really does, like, she really doesn't give us much besides her lyrics. Like, she just gives us her lyrics and lets us speculate about them. But speaking about being open and honest and vulnerable, one of you gave us a very open and honest and vulnerable question. This is our segment that we like to do at the end of our episodes, and it's called Dear Abby's, where we take your guys' questions or life problems. We want you to be as detailed as possible and give us everything. And then we try to give you our very unqualified advice.
Everything we say is true, but don't fact check us. We are not licensed therapists.
Do not fact check us. So this person said, how do I make this short? You don't have to make it short, but I travel full. Make it long. We like to pick the long ones, so make them long. I travel full time. I date, but nobody wants to be more than friends or casual, because I eventually leave, and this leaves me very unfulfilled. I have an ex-boyfriend who is on board with traveling, and we've gone to Thailand and Mexico together in the past, but we've also had a rough past. I've struggled with anxiety, and then he cheated and made it worse, but I kept seeing him until I found out he had another girlfriend, and we didn't talk for over a year until that girlfriend cheated on him. Good for her. Sorry. Karma. So now we're close again, and he's been treating me so nice and loving me so much whenever I'm in town, saying he can't wait to travel with me more and buy land together, but I constantly feel like he's lying, and I do not trust him, and I don't know what it would take for me to trust him again. I'd set clear boundaries, but who knows if he will even follow those. Do I keep the cheater ex who wants to create a life that's aligned together, or ditch him and find someone new, or stay with him but communicate we're open and continue looking?
So, first of all, the fact that you're referring to him as cheater X, I think kind of says it all. Second of all, the fact that you feel like you can't trust him also says a lot, because I feel like trust is at very minimum the foundation of a relationship.
Yeah.
And that if you don't have trust in that, and if he's cheated on you and you said you have a lot of anxiety around that, I just don't think that that's probably a healthy thing for you to continue, just to put it bluntly. Like, that sounds like it really wouldn't work and that you don't deserve that, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think it doesn't sound like, which, not that either of these would be okay, but it doesn't sound like he went out and just like hooked up with a girl and then came to you and told you about it and was super upset about it. It sounds like he was having a whole nother relationship while he was dating you, which means that he not only did it, but wasn't really feeling remorse about it or guilt about it. And it just kind of shows that like he didn't respect you and he doesn't respect your time. And if he's coming back to you after that girl cheated on him, it's like because maybe like he just can't be alone, and like he is like looking for what he had, and maybe he has like come to a realization of like, oh wow, like I had all of this and I lost it, but like he lost it and he has to deal with the consequences of those actions.
Yeah. And I also think I definitely relate to what you said about how it's hard to date on the road because you're constantly moving around and you feel like you can't hold that steady relationship with someone. That is a very real problem that I don't think people talk about enough, is like in the van life community, is just how hard it is to date people who maybe aren't in a van or are sedentary. It's just the logistics of it don't line up, and it can be really frustrating and make you second guess everything because you're like, well, I really like this person, or I really want to date, but I'm just not in one place for very long. And I think that makes it really difficult. But I will say that if you're going out and specifically searching for it, you're probably going to settle for the wrong thing. Like if you're going out and constantly just wanting something to fill that, void inside of you, or someone to fit the bill, you're probably going to settle for someone who maybe gives you some of what you want, but is just enough. And you deserve someone who's going to be more than enough for you, more than just a good fit at the time. And I think that happens really when you're not actively searching out a relationship, but when you're actively doing things that align with who you want to be. Say you're going out and dancing all the time, or you're doing stuff that really aligns with the type of person that you are. You're going out and painting, or you're going surfing, or you're going and you're hiking all the time. You're going to meet like-minded people who also align with your values. And I think that that's honestly the best way to meet people in that organic sense, and to meet someone who's not just going to be a good match maybe, but someone who's going to really, really fit into your life in that way. Yes. So I don't know. It sounds like maybe it would be best to just focus more on your friendships and really lean into those, and think less of like searching out someone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that you have to look at like who would you want in a long-term partner, and like what do you feel like you deserve? Because I don't know you, but I feel like you deserve a lot better than someone who would cheat on you and then come back and just kind of like act like nothing happened and like try to like woo you back in after he's just had this whole other relationship. Like, you deserve someone that thinks the world of you and could never imagine doing anything to like possibly lose you.
Yeah, whenever I think of if I ever find myself second guessing who I'm seeing or anything like that, I just like to think of like, imagine what my mom would think of them, or imagine what I would think of them if my sister was dating them. Yeah. And if that happened to my sister, I'd be like, hell no, girl. You are not going back to someone who cheated on you. Like, you deserve so much better than that.
For sure.
So, yeah, if you put it into that sense, because when it's someone that you're seeing, you can definitely have those rose-colored glasses on and just choose to ignore their flaws because of the good times you've had together. But in reality, you could have good times with a lot of people and make really meaningful connections with a lot of people, and you don't have to settle for someone who is not going to give you their best effort.
Yes, I agree. Also, I saw this on TikTok the other day, so, my super qualified advice, but I thought that it really hit home, and I feel like it would be here, but they were talking about how it's way better to be the person that people are saying like, oh wow, I like can't believe she's still single, like how is she still single, like whatever, than it is to be the person that everyone's like, why would she date him, like why is she settling for him, like she's way too good for him. And I feel like that's the state that you're in right now. And also I think that it's important, like I think that we kind of get stuck in sometimes a cycle of like, wow, like, you know, everyone's finding someone and I really want to find someone and whatever, but also remember that like you have your entire life to date people. And I know when you're in like your 20s, 30s, it can like really feel like everyone's like getting married and finding their people and settling down and whatever, but like you have the rest of your life to get married if you want to do whatever you want. Like this time when you're single and you're traveling is like so special, and it's times that you're going to look back on and they're probably going to be some of your best memories. So like try to remember that and like keep it into perspective and like enjoy it, because you have so much freedom right now.
Yeah, but take a deep breath, you know, try to look at things from a widened perspective and just realize that, you know, just know your worth. Like you deserve better. So I hope that you find that, and I hope that you can understand that and that you're doing good, because it sounds like you're going through the ringer, and I'm sorry that that's happening. But thank you for writing to us.
Thank you for writing to us. If you guys want to put in your questions, it will be in the bio of our TikTok and our Instagram, and also in the description of our YouTube video if you want to come in and submit your questions. We would love to hear them.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. We will be back with you in 2 weeks. And yeah, leave us your questions on Dear Abby's. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're so happy that you're here and that this podcast is a thing. I have loved every bit of it.
Me too. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that you guys have a great next 2 weeks, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.